Bill Krackomberger, the crack man, speaking his mind, venting honesty right here on Football Free for All here on Thursday mornings. That's Bill Krackomberger, the crack man, and on the phone with us from Sharp Football Stats and Sharp Football Analysis, ladies and gentlemen, Warren Sharp. Good morning, Warren.
Hey, good morning. How's it going out there?
Oh, man, we're starting feisty.
Hey, Warren, sorry about that. We just talked about that outside. I couldn't. I just had a vent on air. It's so crazy. You should have told me after the show, probably.
That's all right. Listen to this. Guys, the moves thus far this week in week number 7. Not huge moves, but the moves that are out there. Seattle, 7-point favorites at the New York Giants. That's at 5.5 now. Denver and the Chargers, the favorite has flip-flopped. Denver was a 1-point favorite. Chargers now a 1-point favorite. Atlanta, New England, the marquee matchup of the week. Super Bowl rematch Sunday night. The Patriots were 4.5-point favorites as open. It's 3 now with extra juice consensus. Might see some 3.5s out there, but 3 extra juice consensus in that one. Totals, that's the total that has moved the most as well. Was 53.5. Now it's 56.5 in that one. Warren, your thoughts on some of those moves, and particularly that total in that Atlanta-New England game?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's still obviously looking at Atlanta like they were the same offense that they were, in 2016. But this offense definitely has changed a little bit. They're not quite as efficient as they were, with Steve Sarkisian now in there calling the plays. I think one of the problems for them, though, it's going to be interesting in this game, extremely fascinating, is, number one, the Patriots' defense is very bad. It's slightly worse than it was last year. Now, I've heard these people saying, well, the Patriots were the number 1 scoring defense last year, and now look at what they are. And I tried to totally dispel that myth last year, but people will keep wanting to hang on to it for a great narrative this year. Their defense was not good last year. They faced horrible quarterbacks last season. They were a bad defense last year as well. They're worse right now because they've lost a couple of additional pieces, but they were still bad last year. Now, but the issue becomes, will Atlanta try to keep the pace going in that second half, because they got destroyed this past week against the Dolphins and Jay Cutler at home because they couldn't score in the second half. And I broke down exactly why. They ended up having a lot of bad and negative plays on first down in that second half that set them up for 3rd and long. I think on average on their 3rd downs in the second half, they were averaging 3rd and 14 yards to go due to penalties on those earlier downs. So it made it very difficult for them to convert. They have to do a better job of staying on schedule in the second half, but you have to figure it's in their heads that they have got to keep that pedal to the metal in the second half after what happened in last year's Super Bowl and then what happened just last week. So I'm really going to be intrigued to see how that second half plays out up in New England. 2
great things that you said right there that I want to harp on before they get lost in the air there. One, when I tell people that New England had a bad defense last year as well, they kind of look at me glassy-eyed. So I'm glad you pointed that out and reinforced that their defense maybe not quite statistically as bad right now, 6 games into the season as they were last year, but it was not a good New England defense at all last year. And the other thing is, people the narrative from last week against the Dolphins, Atlanta didn't learn anything from the Super Bowl. They don't know how to milk the clock. And I'm glad you pointed out that's kind of in some regards a bit of a lazy conclusion, because they put themselves in these awful situations against the Dolphins, 3rd and ridiculously long, where they kind of had to, in some cases, actually try to pass the football. It wasn't quite the same thing where they just chose to pass the football in the Super Bowl. Is that accurate, Warren, would you say?
Absolutely. I mean, they were having holding penalties. They tried to run the ball. I think it was on 2nd down, they ran for a negative 8-yard gain. Tevin Coleman lost 8 yards on a run play. So now you're faced with 3rd and, well over 10 yards, 3rd and 15, something like that was where they were currently sitting. I mean, you're obviously going to have to pass the ball there, but it's going to be a very unproductive, generally speaking, passing attempt on 3rd and that long, especially when you're down your number 2 wide receiver, Mohamed Sanu's not there last week. And so the team can double Julio and try to make these other guys beat you. And they're just not quite as adept at throwing to these other guys on such long yardage to go, unless you're catching the defense. But on 3rd and 15, you're not catching anybody. They know that you're going to be passing. So absolutely, they caused themselves a lot of problems with their own self-inflicted wounds on the early downs. forcing these really third and long opportunities that they had to overcome.
Before we bring in Evan Silva from Rotoworld, we're talking to Warren Sharp from Sharp Football Stats, sharpfootballanalysis.com, Bill Krackomberger here in studio, professional bettor. Just real quick thoughts on any thoughts. Perhaps you don't have any real conviction. On tonight's Thursday night game, Kansas City at Oakland. Kansas City 3-point road favorites in the proverbial, especially given the schedule they have in front of them, must-win situation for the Oakland Raiders, because if they don't win this one, this season could get disastrous real quick. Any thoughts, Warren, on the spread or the total?
Well, definitely you have an Oakland team with Derek Carr. I mean, did not look good last week. The offense seems to be completely out of sync, and they've got a short week to prepare. I'm intrigued by this game because this is their game. This is their opportunity to beat a division rival. They're sitting there at 2-4. If they drop to 2-5 and lose this game at home, which should be an advantage to the team that's at home. But I think what people forget, and I'll just kind of digress momentarily, it is to the advantage of the better team. We've said it on the show, not necessarily the home team on these short rest weeks, because you don't have as much opportunity to introduce new things that might catch the other team off guard. So it's an advantage to the better coached and better and more talented team, not necessarily just the home team. But I certainly think this is a massive spot for Oakland that they have to step up. It's their season on the line tonight.
It is their season on the line, as we have outlined here on a numbers game this morning. More with Bill Krackomberger, Warren Sharp, and Evan Silva from Rotoworld coming aboard. We will talk game by game, get into the matchup analysis of this. Take these games from all different perspectives. Week 7 in the NFL on the Football Free-For-All continues on a numbers game at VSiN.
It's a numbers game, live from the tip of the strip in Las Vegas. Get your fill of numbers even after the show is over by following the crew on Twitter, @BeatingTheBook and @VSiN Live.